Hello, welcome to Writings from the Hills. My name is Lori. This week we are spotlighting a book by George T. Arnold. It is called George T. Arnold, Serendipitous, Hodgepodge, and the Kitchen Sink. There is a series of short stories about the author's events or things that has happened in his life, including the unexpected meeting of the first with four famous people, sitting 15 feet from the man who shot Reagan, vivid memories of the Marshall plane crash, three mentors who didn't know they changed my life, Bevo, the best basketball player you never knew, and football players who won a state basketball title. Those are just a few of the stories in this book. It's not a very thick book, I will say that, and it's not even 90 pages long. So, and it looks like there's even some recipes in the back, if there is, for a Christmas cake and some poetry as well. And let's start with the surprise meeting with two of history's greatest athletes. At two scheduled events 23 years apart, I entirely by chance met, shook hands, and chatted briefly with two of the greatest athletes in the history of sports. I am passing these stories along because I want to give readers who love athletics a chance to share vicariously two encounters that still amaze me every time I relive them. The first occurred in 1952 when I was 12 years old. My older brother Pete and I delivered morning newspapers 7 days a week in Beckley, West Virginia. The companies, the Beckley Post-Herald and the Charleston Gazette, periodically ran contests offering prizes to carriers who could sign on some specified number of new customers. One of the most coveted prizes was a 1952 Christmas show at the Municipal Auditorium in Charleston, the state's capital. Pete and I both reached the goal, and along with the other boys who achieved at least the minimum, we set out on cars driven by men who had motor routes with many more customers than we did. We almost did not make the 50-some-mile trip to Charleston. Snow is common in December in the mountain state, and big snows are not surprising. After going only a few miles with the snow falling steadily, one of the men decided he did not want to risk the increasingly dangerous trip. Fortunately, the other drivers were willing and took on the boys from the car, turning back. Charleston had four-lane boulevards, a rarity in West Virginia at the time. It also had a big government buildings and some large stately houses on the boulevard overlooking the Canal River. A couple of the boys claimed the Diamond Department Store downtown even had something called escalators, with moving stairs that carried stationary shoppers from one floor to the next. But we did not get to see those on this trip, and Pete and I were not sure we'd believe such a thing even existed. The Municipal Auditorium was huge by our small town standards. It was built in something called Art Deco style and had about 3,500 seats, including the balcony. We did not know what kind of show we were going to see, but we figured it would have been a lot of Christmas decoration, lights, and music. Our mother told us later, after we described the music, the arts, and the clowns, and the dancers, that it must have been some kind of vaudeville show. Of course, we didn't know what vaudeville meant, and Mother had to explain that too. Anyway, it was fun to spend time in a big city as Charleston and be entertained for the whole day, in which everything including food and desserts was provided free. But to my point. Near the end of the performance, the master of ceremonies brought on the stage a big guy who was introduced as Jim Thorpe, described as the Associated Press as the world's greatest athlete of the first half of the 20th century. Many of us guys played basketball on our school team and Little League baseball in the summer, so this man got our attention even though none of us had a clue who he was. He didn't look much like an athlete to us because he was, by our standards, old. He must have been at least 50, and he didn't look at all to be all that fit for an athlete. Of course, none of us knew he would die in the next year at the age of 65. We didn't know why he was there or what he was going to do. We didn't figure he was going to sing or dance, and he didn't even make a speech. We were told he would be available to shake hands and sign autographs, so Pete and I and most of the other boys lined up to meet him. He didn't say much more than hello and asked us to tell him about our name, or tell tell him our names, and we got his autograph. Pete and I only had a little scrap of brown paper in our pockets, and the big man signed it. We thought that was very kind of nice, picked out a pocketful of more treats, and went to our assigned cars and rode home. It was a fun day, but nothing super special until we got home and saw our dad's reaction when we showed him the autograph. In all of our years growing up, we rarely, if ever, saw our dad get excited. "Do you realize who you met today?" he said with what sounded like envy. "Not really," Pete said, "but he must be a bigger deal than we knew. Boys, Jim Thorpe is a legend, an American hero. He's an Olympic champion, a professional football, baseball, basketball, and I don't know what all else. I'll get you some information on him. I want you to know just how special this meeting him was." What we found out later impressed the heck out of us, and it meant even more over the years when, as big sports fans, we became more knowledgeable about the high pedestal Jim Thorpe occupies in sports history. Well, that is just the very beginning of George T. Arnold's Serendipitous, Hodgepodge, and Kitchen Sink, and again, it's by George T. Arnold. If you would like to request a copy of this book, go to our website at www.briggslibrary.com. You can call any of our locations to request a copy. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.